Welcome to all of you who are here from both Israel and the United States to an extremely important webinar. We are absolutely honored to have with us today Lieutenant Colonel Reuven Berko. Reuven Berko is a distinguished Islamic and Arab scholar. He holds his Ph.D. in political science from where did you say your PhD
was? It was in Haifa University on Islamic Studies.
On Islamic Studies, yes. And Reuven has yes, and Reuven has been a case officer in Lebanon and Gaza. And he was the prestigious head of the intelligence and got the prestigious head of Intelligence Corps award. Reuven is often called upon to consult the media. He consults with the police force here in Israel, and he consults, of course, with the IDF, and really understands the Israeli, Arab, and Palestinian mentality better than anybody else. I apologize that these conditions are not the best. I am speaking in a room that might have a fluorescent lamp, and I just saw that. But in any event, I am honored to be able to be speaking here from Israel, and I was honored to be able to fly into Israel May 13th in the midst of the war, something that Reuven has seen quite a bit of. And Reuven, speaking about the war, can you please tell us about the etiology of the war?
Good evening, Sarah. Good evening, all the audience who are watching us here now. Thank you, Sarah, for having me this wonderful opportunity to introduce my point of view on the events, which I hope that I, in a way or another, have insight on this, since I have served so many years in Gaza Strip, a lot of years in Lebanon, and about 10 years in Jerusalem. All over these jobs I made for the IDF and police was around or surrounding around intelligence matters. And my doctoral dissertation deals with the operational code of radical Islam. So I analyzed in my doctoral dissertation the motives and the ideas through which Islam radicals want to fulfill their mission to control the world. And now, at the time we are speaking about, if I begin my introduction, I would mention then that rumors, I would say, that reaches us this very day, testify that the talks between Iran and the United States are not that successful. In that matter, I would emphasize again that any help that will be served the Iranian efforts by even removing the sanctions actually support Hamas, support the Houthis, support Hezbollah against American allies in this area, not only Israel. So the fact that our sanctions, American sanctions on Iran are still existed is something that help America's
Reuven, I think you froze.
America's ally.
Okay. I apologize. It's poor. Okay.
So I would begin without getting into history, but I'll mention that I was an advisor on Arab affairs in Gaza Strip, and I witnessed myself from personal touch with the leader of Hamas today. At the time, they called themselves in another way, like Muslim brothers used to say. They used to pretend moderate, but inside they plan horrible plans. That's what happened actually in Gaza Strip when I was a colonel and advisor, on a lieutenant colonel and advisor on Arab affairs to General Matan Vilnai at the time. And I can tell you that it was me, and I try to be modest, who has been warning the IDF by writing an alarming document that warned the IDF about the first intifada to come. I have this document at my possession. It's very interesting. So I was very curious about the operational code of radical Islamism. Where do they aim to? This leads me to what happened in short, in Jerusalem, and I jump over many years of service in Lebanon to concentrate in the story of the elections, that some of us believe that the whole story is about the refusal of Israel to Abu Mazen to make elections in Jerusalem. I want to mention you that there were 2 elections in the past in which Palestinians didn't make elections in Jerusalem. It was agreed upon between us and them. Those Palestinians who wanted to participate in so-called election in the Palestinian Authority were allowed to go to Ramallah or elsewhere out of the Israeli sovereignty region and to vote for the Palestinians. We did not prevent them of doing so. More than this, those who did not want to go there, we allowed them to use our post offices, and even located from our initiative post offices new special for this matter in the suburbs of Jerusalem. We allowed special cars, red cars, and I remember that I negotiated with Saib Ariqat, who passed away, about the way these post boxes should look like. He wanted it to be with the opening on the top of it, and I insisted on the fact that it should be located on the side, as post offices are. It seems to be negligible, but it was very important to emphasize that even in the 2 primary elections that has been in the Palestinian Authority, that we do not allow in Jerusalem any polls, any election ballots to be located. But it was not an excuse for the Palestinian Authority not to make elections, and it's a fact that they have already done 2 elections. This time, maybe as a response to the pressure of the European Union and the United Nations institutions that claimed to Abu Mazen, look, your regime is not legitimized. You are already passed over several periods as a president, but you did not make election. It make it hard for them to contribute to illegitimate president. So he thought about making, and maybe he was too optimistic to think that in a combined version of Hamas and Palestinian Authority altogether, maybe he can run a show in which the Palestinians would look united and a natural nation to come. Everybody knows that we have a separate community. I can tell you from my own experience, when we speak about Gaza Strip population, they are totally different, because most of them a lot of them in refugee camps were southern villages that ran away because they made hostile activities against the Israelis at 48. They knew why they are running away, and they were located there, the villages. By the time, the West Bank is totally different. People oriented to Jordan, oriented to the West. So basically, they are not combined. They are not a natural nation of a lot of common denominators. It's very, very different from each other. So at the time that Abu Mazen thought about combining a unit team to be a candidates for the Palestinian Authority, Nadav Argaman, Mr. Argaman, who was the head of Shabak, went to him to a secret meeting saying to him, President Abu Mazen, don't do this. You are about to get into trouble because Hamas are the majority, and the supporters of Hamas in the West Bank are much more than you even imagine. Shabak must know about it. And of course, those in Gaza Strip, they are now crying and saying Hamas took us as hostages. It's not right. Even in Gaza Strip, at the last elections, Hamas got majority of in the election. They won the elections, the last election in 2005, I believe. So after we tried to warn him, his intelligence members, intelligence staff said to him, Abu Mazen, you are going to commit a horrible mistake. And Hamas, when he changed his decision, of course, he put the blame on the Israelis. Israelis do not allow us to make elections in Jerusalem, and that's why I do not make elections. It was actually absolutely a lie, because in the next two rounds in the past, Jerusalem was not part of the elections, except for the citizens who wanted to participate, as I described before. So when he did so, Hamas was deeply disappointed. They wanted to take over the West Bank and throw away Abu Mazen, as they did in 2006. You know that Hamas was ruled by PLO. We delivered the control of Gaza Strip to Abu Mazen, to Abu Ammar, to Arafat, and later on to Abu Mazen. But when they make the coup, they made a revolution, they made it a military coup, they threw out of the roofs of high buildings the officers of Fatah organization, and some of them were hung on the electric poles in Gaza, and some of them managed to run into our warming, hugging arms, asking for rescue. And we did. And we took them and moved them to the West Bank. Now that Hamas understood that the idea of controlling the West Bank by elections has gone, they took advantage, as they always do, of Ramadan month, and created a trouble, an artificial trouble that might happen in any neighborhood, even in New York, when somebody rents a house that doesn't pay rent. I don't want to get into the Sheikh Jarrah events, but everybody know the details. The details are the owners of the house, Jews. They wanted those who occupied by force at the times of Jordanians to evacuate the houses. They refused. The court allowed them to stay in one condition, that they paid the rent. They didn't want also to pay the rent, so that the court put them out. This is a neighborhood story, nothing to do with national motivation, but at the same time, Ramadan is a trick that Islamic movement, also in Israel, I mean Sheikh Raed Salah, and even Palestinian Authority for its needs, and I'll later on speak about the events of October 2000, to take the advantage of this holy place and the sensitivity of people who do not eat, or feasting, or do you say it in English, fasting. And they take advantage of this in order to create troubles and to create religious war on Israel by using Al-Aqsa Mosque as if Al-Aqsa is in danger. This is the slogan. Al-Aqsa Mosque is in danger. The Jews want to destroy it and to establish the new temple instead. Of course, it's bullshit, because if we really wanted this, we can do it all over the history, from the liberation of Jerusalem in 67 till now. And even we could do it even before that. From 48 and on, we could do it if we had this idea in mind. But don't let the facts kill your story. The horrible thing is that during the events, they artificially created two things occurred. One is some of our Jewish loyal population put the blame on Netanyahu for creating a deliberate events in Jerusalem. This is something that we can bear. But the real horrible thing that nobody pays attention to is the fact that those who claimed that Al-Aqsa Mosque is in trouble, is in danger, launched 6 missiles toward Jerusalem. And you know, the Hamas missiles are not that precise. What if they ruined Al-Aqsa? What if they would ruin the Chapel Church? What if they ruined the Jewish wall? What if they didn't take care? They would put the blame on the Israelis that we ruined Al-Aqsa. You know, a tree was put in fire as a result of all their fireworks. And they put the blame on the Jews. So this story is deliberately aimed to create a religious war against the Jews, but not only against us. I even dare to say that at the beginning of this scenario, Hamas didn't want to get into war with us. They wanted to show the Palestinians in Jerusalem and West Bank that they contribute to the fight. So they let several balloons, firing balloons, run into the Israeli territory to fire the corpse of the farmers in the south. And Israel wanted the first stage to contain, as we do for a long time. Unfortunately, we do it for a long time, supporting, helping, bringing money to them, helping their infrastructure, bringing in cement. At the end of the day, instead of changing the area into Singapore, they changed it into under a city, a new city under the city of Gaza, which is dedicated only for terror activities, and all the money and cement and all what you could think about went there instead of helping the people up in the Gaza, above the ground. So when they launched these 6 missiles, nobody would expect Netanyahu to allow this chutzpah. This is something that nobody would allow. And that's why he reacted. The Israeli intelligence was very, very, very much prepared for this scenario, but we didn't want to get into it. So despite all this, there were a lot of Israelis who, for political reasons, claimed that Netanyahu encouraged these events and wanted them to happen by using all kind of stories. But this is something that occurred, and there were several serious riots inside Israel and unrest, a dangerous unrest in the West Bank. And believe me, as far as I understand, Abu Mazen and his people understood a bit late that the whole story was planned to kick them out and to hang them on the electric poles as they did before. So they are trying very hard to incite against Israel, to show how nationalist they are, how loyal they are to the story, but an evidence that something has been changed in the story of the West Bank and Abu Mazen's PLO is the fact that the Grand Mufti, as they call him, who were nominated by Palestinian Authority, the Sheikh Mohammed Hussein, was kicked out of his manbar, out of his stage of speeches, while following his kicking out, humiliation, curses, and even they threw shoes on this Mufti to humiliate him very, very, very deeply. This is a sign how dangerously the PLO leaders and those who were nominated by them are in a risk of existence. And this is something that Israel would not like it to happen. So in the story of how to rebuild Gaza, you could hear that the Israelis insist on a way in which the PLO will be more involved in delivering the money to the Hamas. But I'm worried about this also because nobody guarantees that if Qatar, who is the sponsor of terror in this area, will keep on supplying the money and even more. Now we have Hamas, who's actually surrounded by enemies. Don't even illusion yourself that Egypt loves Hamas so much, because Hamas is a servant for several masters, not a simple one master, let's say Qatar, who supplies the money. Hamas serves their mother, who has been born, who born from its womb. The Muslim of the Muslim Brothers, we had ISIS, we have Al Qaeda, we have Islamic Jihad, we have Hamas. All terror organizations are born from this bastard mother named Muslim Brothers. And I'm worried from the fact that in America, people are in a way or another convinced that Muslim Brotherhood is a peaceful movement. This is an art made by the Islamic movement, Muslim Brothers, to the loose followers, saying that they are preaching for a mutual living, coexistence, and peace between nations. It's all false, it's all lies. They aim to control, first of all, Europe, and they have these bubbles, these enclaves in Europe through which you can see how the Islamic Muslim Brothers movement increased power, and there are no enter zones in France in which Islamic movement are progressing. Also, if there were elections in the West Bank, it seems that the Hamas would take the elections. This is something that shows a very serious dramatic change. Back to Israel, we have the Islamic movement, we have the northern one and the southern one. The southern one looks a bit moderate than the northern one. And the northern one is headed by Sheikh Ra'ed Salah, who is now beyond bars because he incites all the time for a religious war against the Jews. And his deputy, Sheikh Al-Khatib, I don't remember his private name, Sheikh Al-Khatib is also now, he is visiting the Israeli prison from the inside, also for the same blame. I'm about to shorten my lecture and tell you this. We, as Israel, were deeply surprised by the explosion of the riots from the Israeli society, the Arab-Palestinian society, call it wherever you are. I used to call it Arab-Israeli society, community. Now I tend to call them Palestinian Arab community inside Israel. It was actually, for those who were deep in the story, could see that the secular part of those people, of the Palestinian Arab community in Israel, tended more and more to the Reshima Meshutefet. How do you translate it? Reshima Meshutefet?
Joint list.
The joint list.
The joint list. Okay. Those group were elected by people who pretend to be integral part of the society in Israel. They always claimed for equality. They were never been threatened satisfied, and even in at the time of Netanyahu, he put much more money than any government before him in this sector, in the Arab community. He put millions of dollars deliberately to raise the level of the Arab Palestinian community in Israel. And we misled ourselves mainly in the time of Corona. We saw the doctors, we saw paramedics, we saw the medical teams working together to overcome Corona. But there is an unfinished business inside the hearts and minds of those people. I fortunately do not like to generalize, but we see here a community that are sitting on the border, one leg here, one leg there, and those who saw the explosion that occurred between us and Hamas took advantage, not for the first time. We had this from 48 till now, a Vesuvius explosions, a lava explosions here and there, and the most serious of these occurred in 2000, October 2000, Second Intifada. They get into riots and they burned and they killed several Jews on the streets. And unfortunately, the police at the time was stronger, had the ability to deter more. So they killed about 13 people of the rioters, and it was back to calm down back again. Now, they again was on the fence. A foot here and a foot there, you know, a leg.
I apologize about, okay, great, go on, moving, okay.
A leg there, and wait the side. To finish, you want me to finish and open it to questions?
Yes,
I didn't understand.
No, go ahead,
Yes?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No,
So
finish your thought, please.
Finish,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So in this matter, we had to face events in two arenas. One is general roads that leads to Arab villages, separate Arab villages. And the other one, much more disappointing and much more dramatic, was involved in the mixed cities in which we had civilians, Jewish and Arab, living in coexistence and even love and mutual appreciation. But what a surprise it was that people were hit, were lynched, their houses were burned, their cars were burned as a result of only one blame, of being Jews. As for myself, I live in Ramat Gan. I saw the news and I remember my father, who is a Holocaust survivor from Hungary. It was as if I watched my father's story of pogroms, or killing, or humiliating, or hitting Jews for one only blame, for being Jews, and Jews were killed. Now, to create an artificial equilibrium, they claim that we have our militant groups as well. That's right. We have very, very risky, I call them. I would say, I dare to say fascistic groups in our, but they are negligible and the police are watching them all the time. But the explosion of Palestinian Arab society inside Israel was in great masses, was a lot of damage, and they were whispering slogans from the Quran that Khaybar, Khaybar, you Jews, the armies of Muhammad will come and kill you. And I made a chapter of its own in my doctoral dissertation about the story of Khaybar. And we must know that it is a horrible Holocaust for Jews in Arab Peninsula. At the time of the messenger, they were mentioned, they were considered by the messengers as those who betrayed him. So a verdict of one of his people caused about a massacre of 700 Jews after a battle in the castles of Haifa, in which those Jews, they were, by the way, they were the millionaires of the Arab Peninsula at the time. I speak about 628, something like this. And if I dare to compare, take the Jews of the United States, Beverly Hills, for example, and say, these are traitors in America, and President, no one with the name, would declare them as traitors, and all the mob attack and kill them. And by the order of the messenger, they were slaughtered and being buried they digged a channel and they burned the 700 men inside it, raped the women, and sold the children to slavery. So this is the pattern that we heard now from Israeli Arab Palestinians that they eager to fulfill. Now we are standing in front of an enigmatic situation. Of course, the responsibility of a serious state is to keep on containing the population, not to drive those not to put somebody inside the camp of rioters. We have to distinguish between those who did it and between those who thought and prayed for this. This is the line in which I would put the two camps, those who would like it to happen and those who participated in this. You know, there is a slogan in Arabic, a proverb saying, in Palestinian Arabic, saying, the hand that you cannot break, kiss it and pray for it to be broken. The last item is of my short lecture would be, what is the relationship or how the Arab states do with these events? To say the truth, there's a lot of goal nefesh, I would say in Hebrew, from Arab states to the Palestinians. They discussed how comes they put the milestones of Palestinians all over the Middle East. Look, at the 17th, they betrayed King Hussein. They tried to hang him and to kill him and to kill the royal family. And it was called September, the Black September. So they were delivered to Beirut. In Beirut, they made massacres in the Lebanese people. It was in a level, I was there later on. And in my unit of intelligence, the Shia, who are in the southern strip of Lebanon, were the collaborator of the Israeli intelligence because they hate the Palestinians. And every time, or almost every time, Palestinians tried to penetrate the borders, a Shia Lebanese agent would call us and say, there is a Palestinian trying to cross the border to kill innocent people in Galilee. Now, of course, even them, they tend to be Hezbollah. You know, there is no loyalty to anything except for the dollar or except for the dirham or the dinar. Passing from Lebanon, take a look at what happened in Kuwait when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. They supported him against people who gave them work, bread, profession, everything. Arafat supported Saddam Hussein, and they were, at the end of the day, when Americans cleaned Saddam Hussein, pushed him out, they were pushed also. Now in Gaza, the Islamic, Hamas and Jihad Islamic movements were participated, the district of Sinai, which is a branch of ISIS, to kill Egyptian soldiers and officers. So Egyptians, unlike Israelis, have a short memory. They try to calm down the area for their own internal interest, but they will never turn to be Palestinian lovers, not Hamas, nor Islamic Jihad. They know who these Kinderlech are. They know and understand very well who these people are. They will not love them ever. But unfortunately, you can find a general or a high senior officer in the Egyptian border who, for several Egyptian lira, would let them smuggle dangerous weapons against Israel. So this is a complicated situation for us. We understand our enemies. We understand the environment. The environment are tending more and more to cooperate with the Israelis. What Hamas tried to do is to create a massacre that will be done by the Israelis in Gaza Strip. That's why they deliberately use the civilians as shields for them. But I must be proud of the IDF, like a chirurgic operation. They managed to hit them and to minimize injuries or casualties in the rows of civilians. I believe that it is a good start to begin with question, if you think.
Excellent, excellent. Usually I ask the first question, but your talk was very comprehensive, and you answered a lot of the questions I was thinking of, and we've gotten so many. So I now have the honor of handing the podium over to Benjamin Whale, our director of our EMET's program for Israel National Security, who will read many of the questions that have come in, many. Okay, Benjamin.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Reuven. We've received dozens of questions from audience members. And given the topic of the webinar being the Israeli-Arab insurrection within Israel's borders, I will give priority to questions that are related to the topic. And after that, if we have time, to Gaza-related or Palestinian history-related questions. And the first question I'd like to ask that came in is which force or forces are behind the recent insurrections within the Israeli borders? Is it Hamas? Is it the Palestinian Authority? Is it Hezbollah? And additionally, if there is a force behind it, how do we prevent this from happening again?
This is a wonderful question. I'm sorry that I did not initiate by this subject before you asked. Look, listen. First of all, I would mention that there's something on the skies that, like a huge cloud of Islamic radicals who believe that we are about to get into apocalyptic disaster for the Jewish people. On the one hand, they refuse to recognize that the Palestinians were not mentioned in the Quran at all, that this holy land was given in the Quran to the sons of Israel. It's written approximately the way I tell you. And Jerusalem, which is Beit el-Maqdis and in surrounding, belongs to the Jews. So they try to escape from what is written in their holy book by saying that we are mentioned to be destroyed 2 times, and this is the 2nd time. And they're trying to, to escape of these obvious proverbs verbs in the Quran that say that this land is ours. Who encourages apocalyptic idea? It comes from at least 4 sources. Some of them pay money, some of them support with ammunition and weapons. One is Qatar that supply the money. 2 is Iran that supplies money and weapons and even technology. 3 is Lebanon that, of course, supplies moral support and ammunition and weapon as well. And four, and not less of importance, is Turkey. We believe that Turkey are friends in the American NATO allies or whatever. They are dangerous, not less the Iranians. So who put the benzene on this fire? All the four of them are doing this, and the Palestinian Authority is walking on eggs. They want all the time to convince everybody in the world by a political war against Israel that actually calling for a ethnic cleansing. If you say the slogan from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, you mean to free this land from the Jews. How, if you want to have a state of your own nearby Israel, you cannot stack the slogan that say to free Palestine from the river to the sea. And they complain on every, they're trying to create delegitimation and to lead us to South Africa sanctions and to kill us by policy. So I cannot tell you that I cannot wait what is the more dangerous force that lead the Israeli-Palestinian Arab public into this explosion. But since I told you that the popular proverb in Arabic is the hand that you cannot break, kiss it and pray for it to be broken, this is a policy that they stuck not only with us, but the Arab states as well. As you can, now everybody who dared, every state, Arab state that dared to make peace with us, they curse them, they curse their father and mothers, and nobody runs away out of their bitter tongue. And they ignore the fact that those states stood with them, participated in war against Israel for them, lost a lot of soldiers and officers and military equipment in the war against Israel for them. Now they ignore it because, that this opportunistic approach lead them to betray to everybody that goes with them. And this is how, using the theological trick of the Muslim brothers, as they do in America as well, they use the magic word of taqiyya. Taqiyya is a magic word that allows you to go with your enemy and to mislead him so that he'll think that you are something else. They do it deliberately with those who are not Muslim. They allow themselves to do it and even to participate in a very short, several milestones to cooperate. Listen, Iran actually support the enemies of America by using Houthi against Saudi Arabia. Qatar is also a servant of several masters. I don't want to use a word that is not for the protocol here. Listen, there are a lot of American army in Qatar, but they collaborate with Muslim brothers. They collaborate with Iran. They collaborate with every master, including Turkey, in order to push every risk from their mountain of treasures. This is a race-knit group, very few Bedouins who control a lot of money that nobody can imagine how much. And they are very, very racist towards the people who work for them inside Qatar. And they incite endlessly against Egypt, against Arab states, against the Israelis in Al Jazeera net, Al Jazeera television. So this is the way even Qatar do it. And don't be surprised that they are now working with Iran. I speak about Hamas and Islamic Jihad, despite the fact that even by religion, Iran is Shia, the most dangerous enemy for Islamic Sunnah, which is the identity of most of the Arab states surrounding us. They betrayed those states even by religion. Did I reply to your question?
Very well. Yeah, and I feel so bad because so many questions have come in, and this is so stimulating. We're going to have to arrange for another webinar with you, Reuven. It's been phenomenal. Benjamin, I think we have time for just a few more questions, and we apologize that we won't be able to get to all of them. Benjamin?
Yeah, so in former President Trump's recent peace proposal, he included what's called the Triangle in Israel, a bunch of Arab communities as part of a future Palestinian state. What were the current riots of Israeli Arabs trying to achieve? If it is to create a Palestinian state, they refuse to be part of it as in the Trump peace plan. And if it's not to create a Palestinian state, what were the motives or what were the goals that they tried to achieve in the recent riots?
Marvelous. Well, somebody must suspect that I coordinated this wonderful question with you. Very, very nice. Every time I participate in any Arab television, and I do it a lot with the Russian television, I-24 News in Arabic, El Hurra television, I face the question, I put the question in front of them and I've said to them, listen, what you do in your riots, in your deliberate unloyalty to Israel, and you say that we are occupation and the Israeli identity, you are imposed by our identity. You are not interested in the Israeli identity. So this idea of putting them together with the Palestinian Authority, I mean the triangle that you mentioned, mainly concentrated in al-Fahim, which is very, very much deep in the story of Muslim Brothers. Every time we offer this to them, they say, no, we do not accept it. Of course, it would be a very gentle way to deliver and to get. We do not want to make an ethnic enclosure to them. We just say, we will withdraw west. You stay with your houses, with your property, with everything you have. The only thing that will be changed, that will put the border fence that now separate between Palestinian Authority and Israel in western suburbs of al-Fahim. What is the danger? You will be freed of occupation. This is wonderful for you. No, 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 no. Two answers for this. One is the hidden one, which is we enjoy the insurance, the medical care, the democracy in Israel. We enjoy all the good things the Israeli system and the Israeli tolerance, the Israeli democratia can offer any citizens. They enjoy it and took it cruelly, to take advantage of it, and very cynically they do it. The others are ready to confess to me. Listen, we prefer to fight you from the inside. Like Fifth Column, they say very openly, we will never be loyal to you. You are conquerors. You are a part of a colonialism coming from America and the Europeans to get over our lands. You are the new crusaders. You should go back to where you come from. And those people will actually, I believe that there is no solution to the problem mainly between us and Hamas, but he didn't ask this question. But if somebody will do this and say to them, listen, you convinced us, okay, we give up. You don't want to live under occupation. We deliver all the lands, all your territories, all your property, go. You don't go, we go. They do not want it to happen. As for the Jerusalem point, which is something very similar, I'm afraid that Mr. Biden, President Biden, by renewing the role of the consulia, the American consulary in Jerusalem, is a very risky manipulation to divide Jerusalem and to change later on the consulary into an embassy for the Palestinians. I never met a shit like this before, and I hope it will not occur. This is something very dangerous. And if you ask even the rioters in Jerusalem, what would you prefer, to stay with the Israeli hell or join Palestinian paradise? They will choose the Israeli hell rather than the Palestinian paradise with the Palestinian Authority. If anybody who, a lot of researches has been made, they will never like us. They will never turn to be Israelis. They all hate us for religious apocalyptic ideas that for days to come, that they will kill us like the messenger killed the Jews of Haifa in Saudi Arabia. But for the meantime, they prefer to live good lives. And maybe I'll offer you the same question that you asked me about what is the solution with Hamas. If it is a relevant question for you, I will be very delighted to try to answer this.
Yes, very relevant.
You know, this comes to my doctoral dissertation. We, as Jews, I don't know about the audience, but the three I see in front of me are Jews. The Jews in general carry a very optimistic operational code. We say, "Yeh beseder." We believe that things will be fine at the end of the day. Only what we have to do is work hard, and it will be okay. Even in our hardest time in Holocaust, concentration camps, the Jews who remained say it will be beseder. And to next year in Jerusalem, they used to pray for this. So these operational codes have some limits. What are the limits? We want precise, certain standpoints. We want to understand it will be, we will enter Gaza, we'll kill Hamas, or we stay and suffer. This dichotomic point of view. Very few Israelis understand this, and I am sorry to tell you this, it is some kind of a pessimistic prediction, that Hamas is some kind of chronic disease. You cannot go there, eliminate Hamas. We can do it. Let's begin with what we can do. We can go to Gaza Strip. We can eliminate all terrorist organizations till the last one of them will pay with a lot of pain and blood of Israeli soldiers for this, but we can do it. Now is the hardest question. So if we do it, then would we stay in another occupied territory? Do we need this? Do we need to feed those millions or to give them all this medical care? We want to rule them? No. And what is the alternative? To deliver it to the PLO. Wonderful. They were there already. So if the minute they put the steps inside Gaza, they will be slaughtered. We've witnessed this. So if we kill them all and evacuate Gaza, their children are raised to the same ideology. They believe that Jews must die, that Haifa must come again, and that all area must be part of Islamic great caliphate that goes through Europe till America. And you can see this in America, it increasing all the time. I see it from Israel. So what is the treatment for such a disease? I'm joking by saying, if you get diabetes, you have a bullet, you take a bullet and live with it. They need much larger bullet for living aside us, but I don't believe, this is my personal view. It's not a professional understandings as I introduced my ideas before. My personal view is a very bad message to the neighboring Ha'otef area, the surrounding area of Gaza, who will be not delighted to hear me. Yes, we'll have to strike them every period of time and to be tough, much more than we are now, not allowing, controlling what is getting inside Gaza Strip. And if there is any option of a solution, it must be done by Egypt. And I mention you and our audience that Egypt controlled Gaza Strip till 67. We put ourselves in a problem in 67 in Gaza, but we smartly evacuated Gaza. Thousands of Jewish people from Gush Katif were evacuated. We gave them all opportunity to create Singapore, to create a wonderful, a flourishing place, a state of their own on the seashore, one of the most wonderful seashores all over the Middle East, and neighboring gas fields that they could make millions from it. They preferred to create an emirate, Islamic emirate that should join Daesh in Iraq, wherever they manage to put a step on, they will do. What is then the options to get ahead? Whether you strike them every period of time and remind them that the Jews might get crazy, and that's what we did now, or you open the Gaza Strip towards Egypt as it was at 67. I want to mention you, when we had the Camp David meetings, the Egyptians insisted on last piece of soil of Sinai. You remember that we have even a hotel on the borders. They demanded even the last meter of this hotel, so we had to push the hotel back to them. But the Israelis failed to understand, and that this demand, the last piece of soil, should oblige them to take Gaza Strip as well. And I believe that if somebody is really interested to solve the question of Gaza Strip, dismantling Gaza Strip, because Gaza Strip is a danger also to Egypt. What they plan, the Muslim Brothers inside Gaza, is very risky to the Egyptians, and you know what happened to Sadat, who made peace with us. The group of Muslim Brothers killed him. Khaled al-Islambuli did so. So this is a challenge that Egypt should face, and the way to encourage Egypt to do so is by America saying to them, listen, we'll have an airport, we'll have a port, we have a wonderful economic encouragement to Egypt by observing Gaza Strip back to them. And this is something that maybe might calm down the fire. And this is something that is possible to do with a good push and encouragement of the United States.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Reuven. You have years and years of very hard-earned wisdom. I'd love to bring you to Capitol Hill when you're in the United States to impart this wisdom. This is a problem with no easy answers, unfortunately. But in EMET, we very, very much believe in reality and not sugarcoating reality. I have to say that we believe also very much in knowledge and truth, and that is what you have imparted today. And all of this, unfortunately, it costs us a great deal of money, so I would really like people to support us if they can, to the best degree that they can, by going to our website at emetonline.org. But Reuven is worth much more than anybody can possibly pay him. And I also want to invite everybody next week when we're going to have our very own Profile in Courage, a hero, Hussein Abu Bakr Mansour, who has been following the Muslim and Arabic media throughout this last conflict, Operation Guardian of the Walls. And he has seen how it is that the social media and the mainstream media in Arabic has whipped up people, both within Israel and outside Israel, to take up the mantle of the Palestinian cause. And we are extremely proud of Hussein, who those of us who know him know he himself has suffered miserably for trying to defend Israel. And he wrote a beautiful blog during the war, and unfortunately suffered from death threats because of this. So so please tune in next Wednesday. That's June 2nd at 12 p.m. In American time, and it's 7 p.m. or 1900 hours Israel time, to hear Hussein. Thank you again very, very much, Reuven, and we will be in touch.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you, especially to you, Sarah, for having me here with you. Thank you very much.
Be well. Thanks.